Welcome to episode 78 of the LOTD Pod, the Left of the Dial podcast. The Time Worm by my co-host, Richard Shirk, brings us in.
That's me.
And how are you doing, Richard?
I'm good. I love that song. That's a hit song from my new album, With Clairvoyance, which is available everywhere, I guess. That's what I'm told.
It's your first time hearing it, right?
Yeah, and it sounds so good.
Yeah, it's... Sometimes you write and record a song, but you don't hear it until months after the fact.
It's a hit, you know.
Yeah. So that's Richard. I'm Flick, and as I said before, this is episode 78 of the LOTD Pod.
Yeah.
Another edition. I don't know how many of these we've done at this point, but quite a few. We're doing another "I'm Gonna Make You Love Me," where we each come in with an album for the other to listen to. I have given Richard I'm a Stupid by Aimee Mann. Not trying to send any messages with that. It's just a great album. And Richard has given me Rhythm of the Saints by Paul Simon.
That's right. And I'm a Stupid, 1995, Rhythm of the Saints, 1990, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, so we will be given our individual reviews of those. Obviously, we share them because they're big albums for each of us. I went once we get into it, we'll kind of discuss
why
we picked the albums that we picked.
Yeah, sure. And Flick, I just want to say how much I like the idea of these shows. This is probably maybe the third one that I've been on with you. And so much fun because, all the time in conversation with people, you mention an album, you mention a movie or a book or something, and the other person, or maybe me, will say something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, I'll definitely check that out." And then, check back on like how many times that actually happens. And not to be a pessimist, I like to keep things positive, but I know that despite my best intentions, I'm not always that good about following up with these things. But when you have a radio show that you have to record in a week, there's such a good way to do it. And Sean, I've always respected your musical taste, so it's a real delight to get handed an album that means a lot to you and that I know nothing about. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and it seems to be a kind of a bottomless well. I don't think we would run out of. I don't know. Maybe we will run out at some point, but it just seems like there's so many choices to do for this show. There's always things that somebody hasn't listened to. We both listen to a lot of records, but I think it's still I think the list is still pretty long of those albums that I like that maybe you have never heard or vice versa.
That's right. The Venn diagram of our musical palettes and vinyl collections. There is some overlap, but then there is some not overlap.
Yeah, we're exploring the. Well, we have. I don't know that we've really gone to the nether regions of the Venn diagram yet. We'll eventually get there, I imagine. But
yeah, totally. At some point, and now it's like that's the title of the show, obviously.
The nether regions of the Venn diagram,
like the weirdest bad record that you honestly really like, but you kind of know it's weird and bad.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens when we get to that point.
Yeah,
what that entails.
Wow, watch out.
Yeah, so
watch
preview.
Out, internet. Yeah,
preview. So I believe I'm going first with Paul Simon's Rhythm of the Saints. It was the follow-up to Graceland, correct?
That's right. One of those follow-ups that I think people were waiting on for a long time. So Graceland is 86. Rhythm of the Saints is 1990.
Yeah, so wow, and yeah, I did it didn't take a long time from recording this. I'm just noticing this. It might not be as interesting as it caught me for a moment there, but recorded at the end of '89 to June of 1990, then out in October of '90. So seems like kind of a quick turnaround for a Paul Simon album. But yeah, a long time in between. And so before I go into my assessment of it, so why was this your pick?
This is my pick because with a lot of my pals and myself, Graceland is one of those albums that was always around when I was a kid, and I think starting with the music videos in like 85, 86 when I was 5. I think myself and I kind of had this, I'm pretty close with my sister, but my sister's 2 years older than I am. But back in the day, we used to have kind of like this like mutually just we both encouraged each other to become huge music fans. And so we would like tape videos off of MTV and really nerd out about which ones we liked. And so a video like You Can Call Me Al, which like maybe not as an adult like the best song or whatever, it's kind of fun, but it's kind of jokey. Things like that really drew us in. And then
So just to fill everybody in who hasn't seen the video, that video has Paul Simon with Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase. It starts out like Paul Simon's going to be lip syncing the song that he's actually singing, but then Chevy Chase kind of runs with it.
Right. So if you were there in the 80s like I was, you know this video and you've seen it your fair amount of times. Quick little aside. My sister and I used to be such music nerds, probably up until the time that maybe she was like 14 and I was about 12, 13, that we used to tape the top 100 countdown by Casey Kasem every week. And then, but we would kind of like know I think listening to us chatter about it in my mom's car, it would be like, if you were to transcribe it, it would be like something out of some like back office in, Tin Pan Alley or something. It's like, oh, I see this one's dropped 4 positions. Really don't know if it's going to make out the top 10 this week. I think this new Boys to Men song has some heat. Anyway, so Graceland, totally ubiquitous album when it came out, and then you get to kind of digging around like, oh, that was really good, like what comes after that? And a lot of times it's a Cash Out or a live album or something, but no, like Rhythm of the Saints. Okay, so I think I only started listening to this record maybe, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago. But I think if you were to tally up how many times I've listened to Graceland, Rhythm of the Saints, it's probably about the same. It's another album that, I don't want to go too much into analysis because that's your job, Flick. But yeah, it really has some magic to it.
Yeah, I do want to go back to your talk about recording Casey Kasem. Just to do a little comparison, I remember before I had a boombox where you could just tape directly from the radio, having a little tape recorder, and that was my only means of recording anything, and either like putting that up to the stereo to try and record a song, or recording while the TV's playing, if music videos were playing.
Oh yeah,
totally. You ever do that?
Yeah.
So not the best, not the most clarity, not the best sound experience that you could possibly hope for.
Yeah, kids these days, they got it easy.
Yeah. So fans of mono,
get off my lawn.
I guess I was one of in my early age in my early ages I was a mono fan by not by choice.
To quote George Harrison, why do you even need that other speaker?
Right. Depends on what's going on in that other
Yeah,
speaker.
it seems almost superfluous.
Okay, so yeah, to the analysis of Rhythm of the Saints. So I like Paul Simon all right. I think I like him better when paired with Garfunkel than by himself. But I do.
Garfunkel.
What's that?
Garfunkel.
That's right, Garfunkel. And by himself, I guess even either way, there's a lot of hit and miss. When he's on, and uh, I like what I like, and then the other stuff I'll probably just leave aside, and that's kind of the no exception with Rhythm of the Saints. Just starting off, it starts off with Obvious Child, and that is one of the tracks I really like off of this. As it turns out, like this isn't always the case, but the songs I really do like happen to be the singles on the album as well. It's not that I'm a big singles fan. That's not always the way it works, but in this case I would say definitely so. Like Born at the Right Time and Obvious Child are like clearly the songs I really like. And I wasn't super familiar with even those before listening to this as an album, but really like those a lot. Those are the ones that will definitely stay on for the long haul. I will go back to those tracks. Then I would guess from there, it drops off to what happens to be the other single off this, and that's Proof. I like that track. I don't know if that has staying power for me. And then pretty much everything else on the album. I listened to this like 4 times over the past week, and through every pass, like those other tracks didn't really leave much of an impression on me. I thought they were all right. She Moves On, I think is the next track down for me, where I thought that was a pretty interesting track. Like it, like these tracks musically. There's, it's that, heavy with that African influence that was prevalent on Graceland. Maybe even more so. I don't know. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, they both have kind of a weird dynamic with how much they borrow or like outright steal from popular African pop tunes. So especially Graceland. Graceland, you could do a whole show about which songs map back to tunes that may show up on. Well, if you want to do more research, I recommend a compilation called The Unstoppable Beat of Soweto, which is an album that came out around the same time, 85, 86, which collects a lot of the best South African black pop bands that were doing their thing. And from what I understand, Paul Simon received kind of a similar tape from somebody, probably Brian Eno, because that's Brian Eno for you. And then on a few of the tunes, kind of sort of just like replaced the vocal line with his own vocal line, or very similar to. But I feel like if Graceland is kind of like ripping off people, I'm sure from what I understand, he obtained the proper permissions and everything. So that's what it is. But I feel like with Rhythm of the Saints, it's more influence than theft.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference between the two albums for sure, but still also in the same vein musically. But the songs that I like, like I feel like they could be done in any sort of arrangement. and they're still going to work equally well. Like it could be stripped down to him on an acoustic guitar, and it's going to work just as well. And then like the songs that didn't make as much of an impact, I kind of feel like that's the reason why. I feel like they just aren't as strong. Like the batch of songs as a whole isn't his strongest, but there are still those definite songs that rise to the top here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I also I was kind of like listen to this in the context of like super produced late 80s, early 90s bands by people like Peter Gabriel, like Sting solo records, stuff like that, where that the budget for recording this was just immense, and if you look at the amount of players on this album, it is a long list.
Yeah, no kidding. It is really like literally maybe 70 musicians on here.
But I love it. I love polyrhythms. I love interesting beats that are not just like four on the floor, and interesting instrumentation. And I think this album really has all of that. And I think maybe like 3-4 shows ago, or maybe 3 years ago, I was talking to maybe I was talking to you, or maybe this was during my promotional radio appearances with Clairvoyance, but we were talking about how cool it is that that Graceland introduces a lot of very modern or like postmodern lyrics that are not right on the nose, things about lasers in the jungle as part of like a top 40 hit, and I think he does. I should have pulled up the lyric sheet, but I think in The Obvious Child, there's one of the kind of vocal hooks is about this kind of image of rows of crosses in a baseball park. And so I think some of these things, I always extrapolate that to be like, whoa, that's like a really cool lyric about military juntas in the 80s in South America, and I feel like the rhythms in this are, I think, kind of maybe even borrow a little bit more from South American rhythms rather than African rhythms in some ways. So yeah, I think the imagery is just cool. I mean, he has written a bunch of like on the nose tunes like "I Love You, You Don't Love Me," 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, but I think that these two albums in particular, like, not only do they sound really good to my ears, being kind of willfully obtuse compared to a lot of the music going on at the time, but I think lyrically they're just really cool, and another aspect of this was kind of brought forward to me in the last maybe like month or so, reading one of Carrie Fisher's books, one of her autobiographies, about being married to Paul Simon, and how some of the kind of like woe is me isms of that era are like, oh yeah, well, he was trying to make it work with Carrie Fisher, who was not like in a good place at that time in the mid 80s.
Yeah, and by the way, since you mentioned "Boy in the Bubble" there, that does also remind me, to go back to the Garfunkel thing, because
Garfunkel.
because when I at this point when I think of Boy in the Bubble, which is that's my favorite song off Graceland. Um, I first think of Patti Smith. Like Patti Smith's version actually to me one upped the Paul Simon version. And part of it is I think there's just something about Paul Simon's vocals when he's by himself that like they don't. I don't necessarily dislike them, but they aren't. He's never going to be my first choice as a vocalist. I would say, like when I heard Patti Smith's version of that, I just instantly had a preference for it because I liked her singing on it a lot more.
Well,
So
yeah, Patti Smith.
that's a big part of it too. Is just the Paul Simon vocals, sans Garfunkel, that aren't my favorite. I'll put it that way. Like I don't hate them, but they're not my favorite.
Oh yeah, okay. And I think these two albums in the like bigger picture of both Paul Simon's solo stuff and his work with Garfunkel. Even with the like classic Simon and Garfunkel records from the 60s, I think for me, like a lot of them have at least like one or two clunkers on there that
Yeah.
make them hard to listen front to back.
Yeah, I don't know of a Paul Simon record that I can listen to front to back without just wanting to skip. Yeah, they all have clunkers. That is 100%.
With me, like with the exception of these two albums, and I think that's another reason why I've gravitated towards Graceland and Rhythm of the Saints is that that you can listen to them front to back and kind of have them on a loop. I remember having Graceland is so ubiquitous that you'd always find it in like the Goodwill record stacks, of like 75 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember another time finding a cassette of it lying on the floor in the hallway of a rock and roll like rehearsal studio, like probably like the worst one you could ever kind of imagine. It was it smelled like beer and whatever, and everything was dirty, but hey, got a Paul Simon tape out of it.
Well, another thing, they're always good for finding like at a library that you can just check out and go take them home and rip. Although they'll probably be too scratched up to get a good rip of them, at least.
That's right. And definitely support your local library. I know you're not supposed to tell people things on the air, but I don't care. Do it.
Yeah. But by the way, though, just one more point about the vocals. It's not strictly speaking Paul Simon vocals either. It's the amount of effort in his vocals, because I can think back to The Only Living Boy in New York. Great vocal on that. That's basically him
emoting.
Yeah, and he does a great job. Like he's solo on the verse parts of that song and does a great vocal there. But then in his solo career, it's just kind of this more talky vocal type of thing that he does all the time.
Yeah, for some reason, I kind of think about Graham Greene novels about being stranded in like out of the way places in India or something, where you have people that are in the situations that Paul Simon is kind of discussing, and they're kind of remote about it. So yeah, I think the delivery is a little bit cool by design, maybe.
Sure.
I think that's kind of a cool thing about music, and like how you approach the delivery of what you're trying to say, whether you're like a reporter and you're recounting something, or if you're trying to draw someone into like a real experiential kind of vocal. And sometimes I hear a vocalist and I'm like, you emoting so much is making me feel kind of weird. So I'm gonna I need to step back and not be involved in whatever you're going through.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, I would give it a thumbs up, but it's probably just I think two songs that I'm going to that are going to have a lasting that I'll have a relationship with. I'll put it that way. Um, and the rest, I don't know if I'll end up going back to, but certainly wouldn't say this is a bad record.
Wow,
It's
thanks, Sean.
yeah, no, I don't I just want to make sure to say that I'm not down on this record. It just I it didn't make an impact on the whole. It two tracks did, and then the rest might not be heard from again, I guess.
I'm just forgive me if I'm a little bit lost, but I'm just all those things that you just said. I can just picture them as like the gold foil pull quote when you order the LP, and it's like, I'm not sure I'll go back to this one again, but these two songs, they're pretty good. Says Sean Flickinger, co-host of Left to the Dial podcast.
Well, I think we all have those, right? It's there are those albums that are just bad and you don't want to go back to them, but then there are those albums that realistically speaking, you're just going to pull a song or two off of it that you like and probably not listen to the album start to finish again.
Huh. Yeah, I'm so much of an album guy, and I always have been.
Yeah.
But the those are pretty rare. I mean, yeah, they're the tune or the albums that you kind of got to skip over, unfortunately. But yeah, in the California Shirk-Shanowski Art Deco fortress that we live in, Rhythm of the Saints and Ping Pong,
Sure.
they go together, man.
It's always about having that ping pong soundtrack. Yeah, I mean, I guess basically, if you want to look at it in a standard way, like if I were a critic, that's kind of what a 3-star album is to me. Is an album that I'm going to pull off, two or three songs, and then probably not listen to the rest as a whole. That's like a 3.5-star album. So I guess that's to help put it in perspective. That's probably what it equates to.
Okay, well, maybe it's a grower. We're gonna have to check back.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to set expectations, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, for listeners in the future, my prediction is that Sean's gonna have a kid and name it Paul Simon.
Or Simon Paul, perhaps, just to change things up. You have two first names, so it's going to work equally well.
There you go. My prediction is made. Can't take
but
it back.
What is Paul Simon's middle name? That's what we should find out.
Paul Simon's middle name.
Let's see. Paul Simon is Paul Frederick Simon, so Paul Fred Simon.
Yeah, there you go. He's set. He's got his aliases lined up.
It would have been hilarious to me if like the middle name is where he actually had a last name.
You're on some sort of computer.
Yes.
What is Brian Eno's first middle name?
Middle name? I was gonna say I can answer that. It's Eno. Brian Peter George Eno.
No. The longer version.
There's a longer version?
Yeah.
It says in Wikipedia. Oh, okay. Brian Peter George Saint John Le Baptiste de la Salle Eno. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
A little bit of trivia.
Yeah. That's a doozy.
Yeah, it's
especially for a guy with a 3-letter last name.
Like when he opens up his passport, it has to like fold out to accommodate his super long middle name.
Well, having the 3-letter last name really kind of saves a lot of space, I think.
Arguably.
Yeah. You
Well,
won't use up all those characters,
yeah. I'm sure he was thinking of that.
or his parents were
Yeah.
when they invented their last name.
Yeah. Wow. Good talk. Good talk. I really I think we've covered this album. So my let's do final takes. Okay. So my final take, if you like Graceland, you'll like Rhythm of the Saints.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my final take was in my final take.
Yeah, you're pretty clear. You're not
That
you're
whole
not holding back.
that whole star analogy thing, that's kind of my
Yeah,
final
that
take.
was pretty succinct. You get the succinct award, Sean.
That's what I strive for.
Done.
Not trying to outshine anyone. I just want to be concise.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. So moving on to my choice.
Yeah. So, what remind us of what your choice was?
It is "I'm with Stupid" by Aimee Mann, which is her second solo album. Aimee Mann, of course, was in uh, Until Tuesday, who had that '80s mega hit "Voices Carry."
Which
Excuse me, "Voices Carry."
as far as I know, I've never heard that song before you assigned this record to me.
You never heard "Voices Carry"?
No, not that I know of.
Wow. Okay, I don't even know how that's possible. That's almost like saying you never heard music before.
I've
Because
never heard music before. What is this thing you call music?
yeah, so yeah, I would have thought that everybody had heard that, but I mean, certainly it's not.
Hold on, I'm going to launch a poll in the chat.
Yeah, do that.
Everyone agrees with me.
Really? And nobody's familiar with
Yeah,
Voices Carry?
yeah. I mean, I think I haven't listened to the radio in a long time. Maybe, yeah. I'm sure at some point because I read about like it was big hit. Everyone knew about it, but yeah, it doesn't ring any bells. Maybe
Hmm.
I've heard it in like Trader Joe's or something.
Never even like the video's really remember or really memorable too. So obviously you missed out on that too. A lot of
Possibly,
a lot
yeah.
of catching up for you. But you're familiar with Aimee Mann though, at least as a solo artist.
Not really that. I mean, I know who she is, kind of, sorta. Like I'm
Okay.
aware that she's a respected solo singer-songwriter type. Um, so I guess I've always had her kind of like adjacent to Sheryl Crow and Jewel and
Ooh, that's don't like that, but okay.
Sam Phillips, who I love Sam Phillips. She's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one makes sense. Um, yeah, I don't know who else might be. I think I would take Jewel out of that
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, no shade on anyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just kind of like my gut reaction is like, okay, well, what did I know about Aimee Mann before 1 week ago? Not a lot, really.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see how that goes. Yeah. So the reason why I chose this album is because to me it's really a overlooked classic. Like I go back to this album quite a bit. Um,
Oh, and Juliana Hatfield is another name that
yeah,
is in my
that's
notes, and I think
yeah. I
she's
can.
actually on this record.
She is. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I feel like there's somebody else that probably would be in that category, but I can't think of who. At least in the '90s, I think they're like uh, in from the teen in the teens on. You have your Sharon Van Ettens and your Courtney Barnett's, and I like them a great deal, and I think there's something I'm seeing similarly in there. I don't often think about them as being similar, but I think there's a reason why I listen to all of them. At the same time, like part of the reason why I chose this is because I feel like somebody that likes Elvis Costello is going to get this as well. So I think there's something to that as well. Like I see some parallels between Elvis Costello and her. Like they're similar types of songwriters. But this is my favorite album by her, and I was a fan before this. I just kind of always liked Aimee Mann, but this was a big deal for me. This album, and it just always stayed with me.
Cool. Yeah. And do you remember how you got clued into this record?
Well, I had the album. I had her first solo album. So I don't remember not knowing who Aimee Mann was. Honestly,
And was this? Did you pick that up because someone recommended it, or you heard it on the radio, or tell me more?
yeah. So the first album I heard. So there was a song called "Stupid Thing" that I remember hearing on the radio from the first album, and I think I bought it because of that. I think there was maybe 2 songs off of that I heard before buying the first album. Like that album a lot. Like this one even more when it came out. So yeah, it was just no recommendation, just my ears recommending it to my brain. Really.
Ah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, my ears and my brain get along really well. They go golfing together, drinking buddies.
For sure, from way back.
Yeah.
I'm just a bit distracted because I'm trying to the album cover. I like the album cover of her first album, whatever, because it's so very like 1993, isn't it? The kind of like washed out portrait. She's wearing Doc Martens.
Yeah, I was going to mention the Doc Martens. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got it. Sean Colvin, I think, is another artist that kind of that I think of. Yeah. So, and again, like we were talking a lot about album production today, and this rings so many like nostalgia bells with me from just the method of production.
Well, John Bryan was a producer who was also one of the producers on her first album, and that's another thing that came out of especially this album is I really became a fan of him as a producer, and still really like him a lot. He's worked with Elliott Smith, Rhett Miller of the old 97s. I remember he did his solo album. I know I'm forgetting a bunch of others. He's had a lot of big gigs.
Yeah, I looked him up. He's very prolific. I first got to know him from film music. His scores for like Huckabees and
right. I Heart Huckabees. Yeah, he's done a lot of. I know he's done some stuff with Paul Thomas Anderson. I did maybe a lot of stuff. I don't know how much he's actually done with him, but yeah, he did I Heart Huckabees and Magnolia as well.
Yeah, and I think I kind of knew Aimee Mann from the tunes that she has in Magnolia too.
Right. Yep. She had a lot on that soundtrack, including her cover of Harry Nilsson's "One."
Nilsson, yeah, all day.
And yeah, John Bryan. Actually, my favorite movie, since you brought up the movie stuff, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is
classic.
One of the one of his best things I think ever.
Yeah, that's that's one that sticks with you for sure.
Yeah.
So I listened to this. You said you listened to Rhythm of the Saints 4 times. I probably listened to this all the way through like 3-4 times as well, and kind of pick through the songs after that. in reverse order because that's how you do it as a pro. And yeah, a lot of the things that I liked about it have. I think I mentioned how much of a fan I am of Sam Phillips, not the Sun Records Sam
Yeah,
Phillips, but
not Sun Records.
the singer songwriter. Hey, all you fans of Gilmore Girls, you probably know Sam Phillips, like I do, and yeah, great kind of '90s production on with her records. Probably having something to do with the fact that she was involved for many years with T-Bone Burnett. But going back to Aimee Mann, I was stupid. First thing I noticed, lots of guest stars on this.
Yeah,
are you aware of how many guest stars that are really awesome are on this record?
I don't think I was quite aware. Like, I definitely remember reading the liner notes. So I guess maybe I had just forgotten some of these. But yeah, Chris Difford is on here. Juliana Hatfield is on here. Neil Innes, who, if anybody knows the Ruddles, that's Neil Innes. The Ruddles was a Monty Python related Beatles parody in like what 1980 or
Something
so.
like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so not only Chris Difford, but Glenn Tilbrook. So
Yeah,
effectively, like the entirety of Squeeze is on this record at different times, and Juliana Hatfield,
and
and
Michael Penn, her husband.
yeah, yep, brother of Sean and Chris, and also kind of bizarrely to me, and maybe this makes more sense to you, Bernard Butler from Suede.
Oh, you know what? I was not aware of that until today, actually.
Yeah, I listened through it and then I did my homework because that's the kind of co-host I am. Um, and yeah, you hear like all these kind of like effortless
Effortless.
effortlessly cascading guitar noodles
Hmm.
throughout like a lot of the tunes, even some of the quieter tunes. And kind of, my ears kind of perked up and it was like I know that guitar player. That's Bernard Butler. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you could probably find other artists that are further apart in polarity than Aimee Mann and the super like dramatic UK kind of glam rock band Suede.
Yeah, well, at this time, let me see. Is this kind of before they were that big of a deal, or is this
This is
like?
kind of like after they were a super big deal and they're kind of like on the
uh,
downward shoulder.
yeah,
So everyone's in the kind of like their solo record. I think Bernard Butler was in his solo record kind of phase after leaving the band, but uh, it's kind of a weird fit on paper, but it works really well. And so, like Sean was saying, um, Aimee Mann is a really clever lyricist with these great uh, rhythms to what she's writing, which you mentioned this earlier, but yeah, it reminded me of how Elvis Costello knocks together a pop tune. Hyper literate,
hmm.
cramming in like probably 4 times as many words into a song as whatever's on the radio right now, if they still do that kind of thing. So yeah, it was a fun listen, and I liked. I thought Frankenstein was a really cool tune with some clever wordplay. It's Not Safe was a really fun song.
Hmm.
All Over Now, Make a Killing,
All
Choice in
over
the
now.
Matter.
It's the Bernard Butler. That's the one that you would hear that it's Bernard Butler. You know, me not knowing that until now, but now that I think about that tune, yeah, I can see what you're talking about. Where it's like that guitar player.
Yeah, like someone like Johnny Marr that just puts his hand on the guitar and it's, a classic riff. Just
Mhm.
doesn't have to think about it. Must be nice. But yeah, so I liked those what is that, like two, four, five tunes that I thought were really good. And I've come a long way since we were first hanging out, Sean. Where I think as a younger man, I was very dismissive and kind of like judgmental about some things, and I don't think I'm like that anymore. I think I've really grown as a person, but but I do think it is a little bit on rock and roll to
Shh.
name a song after golf terminology. Agree? Disagree?
Are you? Which one are you talking about?
Par for the course?
Oh, par for the course.
And I think it actually mentions
Uh
golf in it. It might not, but
I don't know. Like going back to the Elvis Costello thing, I could see him doing the same thing. I don't know, and I'm not dead set against golf either. I'm not one of those that I like sports. So that's one of those things about me that some people some people might be dismissive of. Maybe
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that's on rock and roll of me, but I don't know. I like that song quite a bit actually.
Okay. And I think that this is kind of fun because it's also frozen in this period of time. Many of our listeners weren't even alive back then. A lot of the kids that write into us from all over the world that listen to the show. Thanks for listening, guys. We
The
appreciate you.
those that are spending the rest of their time listening to BTS and
Yeah, yeah, and props to BTS. That stuff is sick. But yeah, I think that the mid '90s. So if you were to go back in time to 1995, record companies are making money hand over fist with artists like Alanis Morissette, um, Garbage, Pearl Jam, all these bands that I'm probably not going to listen to. Like that's fine if you do, but also in that is a very very distinctive production style. So like really squashed 90s drums. Um, and something else about it is that the time constraints are gone. So famously in with the advent of the compact disc, the CD, it was made to hold the duration of the longest kind of canonical version of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which I believe is like what 71 minutes. And in doing so, I think it took a lot away from the album format. So, um, and you and I talk a lot about vinyl and about how it's such a great format, and I think it's such a great format because of the limitation. So, let me do some math for you. Um, if anyone is math averse, just come back in a few minutes. But the most amount of music that you can fit onto one side of a vinyl record is like roughly 22.5 minutes, and that's really pushing it. So that means that album in its entirety will be at its max about 45 minutes long. Now, 45 minutes long is exactly the one side of a 90-minute TDK cassette tape. So you see that you can't mess with that numerology, or else the entire thing
well,
collapses, right? Am I right?
yeah, yeah. If you're going where I think you're going with this, I will have to differ with you somewhat.
Okay, yeah, and that's fine. We can't agree on everything, but I think that in the '90s, one thing that was kind of fun at the time, but is less fun now, is that albums were like super long and really
Well,
arguably too
y-
long. And
y- yeah, I mean that's where I thought you were going. At 56:21, by the way, is what we're talking about here for Almost Stupid, which isn't, it's 11 minutes over that 45 minute mark. Um, I wouldn't take that much off of this though. I could see taking off like Super Bowl. That's a song I'm not very partial to. Probably
yeah,
the one that that I could definitely do without. But outside of that, I don't really have anything else that I don't like off of this album.
yeah, I would definitely, yeah, Super Bowl I would cut. And so if you're new to Left of the Dial podcast, we try and keep things really positive because there's so much good music out there, so many talented artists. We don't like to throw shade. That's just not how we roll. But Super Bowl kind of sounds like They Might Be Giants to me. Um, I
Yeah,
would cut.
it's one of those things that I can
Yeah,
kind of see how it makes the cut because it's catchy and it's maybe not as challenging as some of the other songs on this album, but the challenge is part of what makes the other albums really good or other songs really good on the album. Yeah, Super Bowl is just more accessible, really, but not as strong of a song.
yeah. It's like when you're at a concert and like if we're seeing Aimee Mann play somewhere and there's one person yelling out for Super Bowl and you immediately like without thinking cast judgment on them. There's
Like
always a
that's
there's always the person at the
you
show that's
just
yelling out like their worst song,
yeah, you just wasted 3 minutes of our time.
Yeah. So not a big fan of that. And I think that yeah, if there was some limitations on this, I would cut the lead song, Long Shot, I would cut Sugar Coated, I would cut Ray, definitely would cut Super Bowl.
See,
Um
I like all of those songs quite a bit except for Super Bowl.
yeah, and I think that's just part of where I'm at right now in terms of what kind of music I like and also like what kind of music I like to make. Um, I think Sugar Coated is okay, but I think it's like 2 minutes too long. And I listen through Voices Carry because I like to do my research. And Voices Carry, that's like 3 minutes too long, and that song is
Yeah.
only 4 minutes 23.
Well, that was an 80s hit, and that was just kind of a trademark of 80s hits. But, like comparing that to this, it's a very different, it might as well almost be a different artist because here I think she's definitely, in Till Tuesday, I doubt she was calling a lot of the shots. She was probably calling some of the shots because she was good. But I think at this point in her career, like she was calling a lot more of the shots. I don't think she was looked at in this situation to be as big of a commodity. And working with John Bryan as a producer, I think that's her call. I don't think that was the record company. Um, so I think it's not really a good comparison to compare. Even though it's the same artist, I think very different stages of a career, though.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think even referencing how judgmental I used to be about people who like to play golf or something. When I was 20 rather than 40 as I am now. So
Or write songs with golf references in them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, people change and that's something that I think a lot of people need to realize, especially if you're friends with people from middle school on Facebook or something. Like no, I mean like that person may not be carving swastikas under their desk anymore. Like maybe they're a good person now. So coming back to what I was kind of before all these tangents started, the mid '90s were kind of a weird time where a lot of things are kind of like overproduced and it's rare to find any artist doesn't that or didn't indulge in some of the like little production things that you hear like stupid drums um, and that's okay. But I like this record, Sean. You gave Rhythm of the Saints 3 stars out of 5,
Well,
right?
roughly, not officially, but that was kind of my assessment,
Yeah, I think I'd probably do about the
loose,
same for
loosely.
this one, and I'm not sure I'm really gonna walk away with any like. I don't think there are any tunes on this one that I'm really gonna put on any mixtapes, literal or figurative. Um, but what I do appreciate is being aware of this artist now. I I've listened to some of her other tunes, and I don't know if you heard her cover of Avalanche by Leonard Cohen.
No.
Well, it just came out this year, and it's really really good. And I listened to that and really got into it. Like not only the um, the chops of being able to play that arpeggiated guitar figure in Leonard's tune, but also kind of putting it into um, a new context. I think Avalanche with Leonard Cohen is about, for me, it's like about the dissolution of his relationship and losing custody of his kids and kind of substituting touring and drinking and womanizing for that. And I think Aimee Mann's version is really really timely. I think that a lot of people feel kind of buried right now, and like um, I feel like they're kind of overwhelmed and need to have some way to visualize that, or to try and kind of work through it or whatever. But that was cool. And then I went back to an album called Mental Illness from 2017. Do you know that one?
Yeah, see, I was looking through her catalog today, and actually, it's funny how things work out. Like you mentioned one song and one album that I have that aren't really on my radar, but basically, and the rest of her catalog is. So yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, really cool. Really, I think a lot of the like dumb studio complaints that I just gave voice to are totally counterpointed by the production and the songcraft on her recent albums, or certainly on that album. I haven't listened to all of her back catalog, but yeah, the guitars are just like like really well mic'd acoustic guitar and like really kind of spare um
I
accoutrement.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by the bad assessment of the recording, because like I said, I this album really kind of brought John Bryan to my attention as well, and I really liked I liked the way this album was produced. I think when it was a new album, that was a big part of it, was that it didn't really remind me of other stuff that was going on and popular. So actually my take on it is quite different.
And I think a lot of it is just going to come down to a matter of taste, because even the Elliott Smith, because John Bryan produced Figure Eight, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't listen to that album anymore because it sounds so like dated to me. But maybe that's just because it has a lot of like personal associations from like trying to exit high school and like get out of town and stuff, but in my opinion, it just hasn't aged well in terms of the production. What's it?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably, I think we would have concentric circles on production that we like and what we don't, but yeah, this is kind of where we veer in different directions, maybe with John Bryan.
Yeah, yeah, and no worries. But yeah, so bottom line, yeah, I really like Aimee Mann. I think if she were, as we record this show, we are still in the midst of the global COVID pandemic, but there's some kind of light on the horizon. And yeah, if I saw that Aimee Mann was playing at the Greek in Berkeley, I'd probably pick up some tickets. Thanks to my co-host and friend Sean Flickinger.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I mean, at least I initiated a relationship, um, possibly. It might not be with specifically this album, but I got to make a quick correction. John Bryan did not produce Figure Eight. He was on it, but he did not produce it.
Oh, who produced it?
Various producers: Rob Schnaff,
Oh,
um,
that guy. Yeah. Okay.
Tom Rothrock. Well, I guess Tom Rothrock, Rob Schnaff, and Elliott Smith are the producers. But from a basement on the hill, I think he played some part in that. Do I even have that title right? Did I mess that title up?
Yeah, from a basement on the hill. I think a lot of people played parts in that. That is the posthumous recordings that Elliott Smith was working on from around Figure Eight until the time of his death that never got
Yeah,
like all the way finished.
yeah. So he has a mark on that album. Some of the stuff anyway. I don't know exactly what, but maybe a producer or quasi producer.
Yeah, yeah. So and that's a whole other show we could definitely do. It's such an interesting way that album came about. I really like From a Basement on a Hill. That's a cool record.
I agree.
Well, there you have it. We have exchanged records. We've both learned a lot of lessons, life lessons, and I think we both walked away with some new tunes in our libraries. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I hope so. And in the case of Aimee Mann, I guess adjacent to the ones that I suggested, but I guess I'll take that. That's something.
Right on, man. I like
Yeah,
your
I
positivity.
yeah. I don't know. I love I again though I want to say how much I love I'm a Stupid. I mean, to me it's even if the tunes on it weren't ones that are going to stick with you forever. I just want to put it out there to anybody else that give it a listen, because it's one of the great overlooked albums, I think.
There you have it, listeners and friends. Go check it out.
Yes.
Sean, we haven't really talked about this. It'd be kind of fun to talk about it on the air. What are we up to next week?
TBD.
TBD.
Yeah, because I don't think we would have the spitballing session on the actual show, but maybe we should spitball a couple of things after we're
Yeah,
done.
yeah. The green room was kind of the green room was a safe place today, and we didn't really talk too much shop, did we?
No, we didn't get to that yet, but maybe hopefully there's time to do that.
Okay. Well, again, another mystery show next week. So I'm definitely gonna subscribe to Left of the Dial podcast just because the suspense is killing me.
We like to keep you on your toes, but I think we come through in the end. We deliver.
Make sure to check out our ongoing In Rotation playlist on Spotify. You can find that by searching for LOTD Pod on Spotify. These are public playlists and they're full of good tunes.
We have to pull one up for April yet, so we'll get to that as well.
Yeah, just keep jamming on the March one because it's got some
Yeah, the March
solid
one
stuff.
is really good. So maybe it's a good time right now to go back a couple of months, but we'll have the April one up before you know it.
You got it. Okay.
Just maybe review for now.
Always a pleasure, my friend, and we're gonna do this again next week. You've been listening to Left of the Dial podcast.